Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about episode 7 of the brand new FX original series, which is of course titled Shogun, and this series is available for streaming on the HULU platform, so if you're interested in that then definitely go check it out. I would assume if you're watching this video you probably have seen the series anyways, at least up to episode 7, and episode 7 was titled A Stick of Time, which is very appropriate because a stick of time is something that Toranaga ends up giving one of the managers or owner of the brothels in this episode. She asks him if she can have a stick of time, and it seems to me like the stick of time is probably anything from 30 to 60 minutes, I would suspect. I don't really know how much it is exactly, but if I'm guessing, it's probably somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. But anyways, that's the title of this episode, so we're going to go right ahead and jump in. The episode opens with a really cool battle sequence, and it seems like the warriors and the battle and the person leading this army seems to be very, very young. And of course, once we get so far into the opening sequence, we do learn that it actually is Toranaga when he was very young. And as you can see, it says Toranaga's first battle 46 years ago. And as you can see, he was extremely young during this first battle, and it appears that he did win, and that's really cool. So, it just goes to show how much of a good warrior he is. It would also explain why he's so intelligent. As we know, Toranaga is extremely intelligent, and he seems to be always 1, 2, even 3 or 4 steps ahead of Ishido, and I think Ishido knows this. I believe Ishido knows that, Toranaga is a very intelligent person, and I think that's why he's also so intimidated by him, and why he probably wants Toranaga to be removed from the picture already. You know what I mean? I think that's why he's trying to get Toranaga out of the picture so quickly, because I do think that he is intimidated by Toranaga, and this would be a great reason why, if he won his first battle 46 years ago, then it would make sense that this is why he's afraid, and so he should be afraid. And so then we come back to the present day, which is, of course, as we know in the last episode, Toranaga reached out to his brother in hopes of in reviving their alliance, and hoping that he can use his brother's, his fighters, his warrior, his army, and for them to use to go in against the assault and to basically perform Operation Crimson Sky. And so right off the get-go, as soon as we meet his brother, I believe his brother's name was Saki, and as soon as we meet Saki, I was kind of on the fence about him. Like, a part of me was thinking, like, yes, maybe he could end up betraying Toranaga. Not really because he was giving off those vibes, but just given the fact that this is the type of show it is. And, let's be honest, sometimes money talks, power talks, and also manipulates. So a part of me was thinking, well, maybe, Saki would be willing to go against his brother Toranaga. Maybe he is actually working for Ishido. But there was also an equal amount of me, that was also thinking, well, he is a part of this Japanese culture, and they are so, they're so in tune with respect and honor, and and not disrespecting or disgracing and family name and reputation and all these things. So I was really torn from the very beginning of this episode between whether or not Saki would betray Toranaga or whether or not he wouldn't. But I did figure it was going to be one. Obviously it would have to be one or the other. But I did question right from the beginning: would he go that far or would he not? Because, like I said, given this type of world, and how much normally the honor system and everything works, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe, just maybe, Toranaga would be left with at least one ally in his brother. Excuse me. But as we know in this episode, that is, of course, not the case. And so we end up coming here then to this really cool scene where we have John, Blackthorne, and, of course, Mariko going to Toranaga, and basically, John's once again, sort of trying to create this. He's just confronting him about leaving, about having his boat, and he's trying to, basically, he's just trying to figure out what his role is going to be in Crimson Sky. How does he want him to be served? You can tell he's once again getting very, very frustrated with Toranaga. This whole series, it seems like he keeps helping Toranaga. He stays very, reliable and very loyal to Toranaga, but then all he ever wants is, all he wants is to just be allowed to go home, and it just seems like he's never allowed to go home. And I think now that, more than ever, especially by the end of this episode, he's just getting to that point where he's like, man, you know what? Like, you just gotta let me go, or at the very least, you gotta tell me what you want me to do. Like, how do you want me to serve you? Because he really doesn't believe he's even really capable of serving him for this war that's coming. And so that's a really cool little back and forth here. And whatnot, and so then we come to this sequence here. This was a really, this was a pretty sad, little scene here, and a great callback to, I believe it was the first episode as well. This is, of course, Fuji. We also learn here, I don't know if we learn it here or if we already learn it, and I'm only now catching on, but we learn that this messenger that was very close to Toranaga is actually her grandfather, which makes me wonder if Mariko's husband, Buntera, does that mean that that's her father or her uncle, I guess? Either way, it's one of his. So that means Mariko's husband is either her father or her uncle, which I would assume would mean that she's kind of technically related to Mariko too, either by blood or even by marriage, so to speak, because Mariko is married to Buntero, and Buntero is either this guy's son or his nephew, if that makes sense. So obviously the three of them are related somehow. So I only caught on to that in this episode. Maybe that is something that we've always known, but I only caught on to that in this episode. But anyways, he's actually giving Fuji the remains of her husband and her child. The ashes, it seems like they were cremated, and she actually gives a very devastating line here. Actually, she says to him, when I'm done serving our Lord, I will take my own life and I will join them and become ashes like them. And I just thought that was such an emotional thing to say, and also I really appreciated how he actually tacks up for her. He's like, hey, why would you kill yourself and become ashes? Why don't you live in honor of their name? You're serving your Lord in honor of their name. And so I was really able to, I really felt the emotion. I was really able to connect to the emotion of that part, because you could see both sides of the, you could see both sides. I could see her wanting to be reunited with her loved ones, on a spiritual level, but then at the same time I can see his point of view. Why take your own life when you have so much now to live for? Rather than dying in their name, maybe you could live in their honor. And I just thought that was really cool. It's just a really cool little sequence, and I don't know, I really appreciated it. Excuse me. And so we get back here. Now this is Toranaga's brother, Saki. He's, swimming in the hot springs. He's really enjoying himself. He's got Toranaga. I believe he has Toranaga paying for that brothel that Blackthorne was in. He wants all the nicest prostitutes, all the, you know what I'm saying. He's just living like a king. He's living like a lord. He's Toranaga's brother. So obviously whatever he wants, he's going to get. Toranaga is, he's like the lord of the land. So whatever he wants he's getting, and he is getting it. He's just absolutely loving his visit, enjoying life and whatnot. And then we come to this sequence here, which was very cool sequence, and it did end up going, and this whole scene ends up taking a left turn, because Toranaga and Saki are reminiscing, they're talking, they're remembering, telling stories, and which eventually will become like legends, and talking about their relationship with their mom, and and their upbringing. And he actually talks about Toranaga being in battle at a really young age, which is actually how this episode opens, with 46 years earlier, and he's sort of telling this story. But then it sort of takes a little bit of a darker turn when he talks one story that he tells about Toranaga, being so afraid that he ends up pooping in his pants or something like that. Like, whether or not that's true or not, it's kind of irrelevant, and I just thought that that was pretty disrespectful to say about, this leader, which is when he said that story, that's when I started to clue in and figure out, okay, he probably is working for Ishido, which sucks because I really wished Toranaga had at least one ally, but it seems like he has no allies, not even his own brother, which is absolutely ridiculous if you ask me. But anyways, that's just the way it is. So Saki absolutely does betray Toranaga and ends up siding with Ishido, which is just absurd if you ask me. But either way, I do hope that he... I hope Toranaga ends up killing him in battle. I hope, or somebody, I hope he loses in the battle that we know is absolutely coming for sure. And so we wake up the next morning and we see all of our favorite characters. For example, just here is Fuji coming out, and you can see the guards blocking the path. This is, of course, Saki's army. Saki has taken over the land and basically has ordered everybody to stay in this village or in this town that they're all in. And he basically tells everybody, hey, you're not allowed to leave, basically because of the fact that he tells everyone that Toranaga has been summoned and he needs to make a decision. He can either surrender and go peacefully, or he will actually be arrested, and who knows how far he'll go. Either way, he gives Toranaga a choice. So Toranaga says, well, give me 24 hours, well, roughly. He says I think he says sundown the next day or something like that. He's like, give me 24 hours to contemplate, which basically just means he's going to, go back and forth with it, try to figure it out, try to come up with a decision. That's all contemplate means. And so this is what he's doing now. He's contemplating, but in the meantime, all of his people, all of our main characters, Blackthorne, everybody that we know, love, and follow, are now basically held captive in their own town because of Saki and his betrayal to Toranaga. And here we see Toranaga. He's up here, and I think he throws a rock or something at this little wooden structure here, but I think that it actually means something, but I can't quite remember what it is, and they don't really explain it here. But I actually think that does mean something, but I could be completely wrong. Maybe it doesn't mean anything, and I'm just looking into it too much. But for some reason, a part of me thinks that what he was doing here actually does mean something, but I could be completely wrong. But either way, he's here contemplating, trying to figure out what he's going to do. Of course, his son ends up coming in and basically asking him, saying, hey, what are you going to do? Did you make a decision? Of course, Blackthorne is also getting very impatient now. He's kind of pacing back and forth as well. He's like, we should be doing something. And Mariko is like, well, what can we do while Toranaga is contemplating? And Blackthorne is like, well, we can do anything. Anything is better than just standing still and doing nothing and whatnot. So, Toranaga spends most of his day just contemplating. Then we get a really cool scene here where you see this really amazing ship, a really cool ship with these brand new crests. They do say who owns the crest, but I can't quite remember. I just assumed it was Ishido's, but I don't really know. I can't remember, but Blackthorne does ask who owns that crest. It would have to be either Saki or Ishido, I would think. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I can't quite remember, but it would be one of them. And the guy does answer him. He does tell him which one it is. And then, so once again, now here you see, Yoshi's son, and you see his two allies, trying to figure out a way to, basically everybody's sort of trying to form their own way, come up with their own plans, figure a way out. But of course, Toranaga is still contemplating, and at the end of the day, it's up to Yoshi. Anyways, he's the leader, so whatever he decides, he'll do. But as you can see, they're saying, at least let me ride out and get word to our troops in Edo. That would be sort of like a backup plan for them, I guess. It would be sort of the same as just calling in some reinforcements and whatnot. But they're all very patient, and they're basically saying, well, we have to wait no matter what. And so later on in that evening, I guess we're getting close to sundown. Now, it's not quite sundown, but we're getting close to sundown. You see Yoshi's son and the other guy, and they're in that hot spring, kind of like a hot tub, but it's like a natural hot tub. And as you can see, the translation here says, "What else is there?" And that's because Toranaga's son asked I believe that's his uncle, asked the uncle, well, he must obviously have a plan. And the guy says, well, why do you think he has a plan? And he says, well, what else is there? My father, Toranaga, is not going to just surrender. He has to have a plan, right? And he's not the only person that thinks this, because later on, when Toranaga gives the leader of the brothel, that one stick of time, she says the exact same thing. She questions some of the decisions that he's made because she thinks that he has a plan, even though he never once admits it. Toranaga never says in this episode at any point in time that he actually has a plan. He ends up actually coming out and agreeing that he's going to surrender, but we will get to that now. In the meantime, very cool sequence here, which I actually really enjoyed this scene. This was my favorite scene, I think, of the whole episode. Not of the whole series, but definitely my favorite scene of this episode, which is, of course, Blackthorne and Kashigi out training. Kashigi actually gives him his sword and teaches him a little bit on how to wield it, how to use it, and we get a very, very intense moment because while they're training, Blackthorne ends up falling, and then Mariko's husband, Buntaro, ends up coming over and putting a sword to his neck, and you can tell just by the look in his face, he wants to kill this man. He's not going to kill him, but you can tell that he absolutely wants to kill him, and but he doesn't. But you can see, I really liked Blackthorne's line here. He actually says to him, "Go ahead, just well to get it over with," or something like that. He says, so it's almost like he's acknowledging that they're probably going to lose this war, or he's acknowledging the fact that it's likely going to happen eventually, or something like that. But either way, it was really cool, and I just really thought that was I just thought it was really cool to see, to see that interaction between Blackthorne and Buntaro. And then we come to this scene, which is once again a pretty emotional, pretty intense scene, where Buntaro actually confronts Toranaga literally right in front of Mariko, and he actually asks for permission to kill the agent or the barbarian or John Blackthorne. And of course Toranaga asks him why, and he's like, well, I don't like the way he looks at my wife and whatnot. And of course Mariko is here right next to them, in front of them as well, while he's saying this. And basically Toranaga says, well, if you want to take his life, you have to have a reason, and if you're going to accuse him of doing something wrong, then you're also going to have to accuse your wife, which makes sense. And Toranaga is actually right about that, once again showing his wisdom and how smart he is and how good he is at de-escalating these types of situations, how good he is at handling these situations, and just by him simply telling that guy, whatever you do to John, you're going to have to do to your wife, because, it takes two. If you're accusing him of doing something wrongful to your wife, then you're also accusing her. And he says, no, I'm not accusing her of anything. And then Toranaga says, how are we going to settle this dispute? And he just says, my words were petty and I apologize. And then he leaves. And then, of course, Mariko sort of also ends up having a really interesting back and forth with Toranaga. Then you can literally see here from the translation, she literally says, free me of this cursed life. And she's basically asking she's basically asking him to end her life, because she just, once again really feels like her life is meaningless. She feels very shamed because of her family and just really everything, about her life and her family and everything surrounding her. I think she's just at that point where she's fed up, especially now where you have her husband, Buntaro, who's actually, sort of going against her to some degree as well. He's frustrated, she's frustrated, and whatnot, and so Toranaga, of course, he doesn't kill her, and he doesn't really free her, but he just tries to, sort of get her back, back up, sort of getting her back up in spirits and whatnot. And so finally, then he goes, Toranaga ends up confronting his brother Saki, and he says, I surrender, and I will go before Lord Ishido. And of course this makes Blackthorne very upset. As you can tell just by looking at him how angry he is. He just wants to, pull out those swords and probably cut everybody out. And he actually causes a little bit of a scene here. He has a little bit of a tantrum, basically calls everybody there dumb. He basically says, you're all dead, because of, if he surrenders, everybody's going to die, you're all dead and whatnot. And he's not wrong, because, he knows what Ishido's like. He knows that there's going to be, a lot of really bad stuff happening. But either way, Toranaga has made his decision. He will go and stand before Ishido. Now, I still am a very strong believer that he has a plan. And it's not only me who believes this, the lady who's the head of the brothel, she believes this as well. That's why this episode was called A Stick of Time. She wanted to have a stick of time with Toranaga, and he did. He gave it to her, and she actually said that she believes that he has a backup plan, so to speak. She's very observant, and she observed a lot of things that he did, which didn't make sense, which told her that he probably very likely has a plan. I think he has a plan too, and he has already talked about Crimson Sky, and I think what better way to get Crimson Sky than for him to literally surrender and go to Ishido, and then he might actually get some one-on-one with him, and I do think that he'll kill him in the meeting. I think that's the whole plan. I just think that Toranaga he wants to keep the casualties minimal, and so I'm thinking that he thinks that if he surrenders, there probably won't be a whole lot of casualties, at least not right away, and I think that he feels like he will get the opportunity to kill Ishido first, and then kill the rest of the council members, which would automatically put him in the lead. So at least that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he's going to go in sort of like an undercover agent, so to speak. And so he tells Saki his mission, or his decision. He says, hey, I'll surrender and go to Ishido. And Saki says, great, tomorrow you will leave for Osaka. And of course, this is not good enough for Toranaga's son, and once again his son, like, it seems like his son is just always out for blood. He's always wanting to go to war. He's always causing trouble. In the last episode, or in one of the previous episodes, he killed all those people that came from Osaka that Ishido sent, which is basically what started a lot of this conflict, and now he basically starts another conflict here, or he tries to, because he ends up sneaking out, and he actually goes and confronts Saki, and he even draws a sword on Saki, threatening to kill his life, because Saki right now is unarmed. He's literally only wearing a robe, so he's very vulnerable, and so Yoshi's son wants to take matters into his own hands, but when he goes to attack, he ends up slipping and actually falling on very slippery rocks, and he ends up falling and hitting his head and splitting his head open on a rock, which essentially ends up leaving him killed. Now, I am very curious to see how that's going to play out in the next episode, because how will Toranaga react when he learns that his son was killed while in pursuit of his brother? The question is, will Toranaga actually believe his brother, or will he believe the son? Because Toranaga has already seen his son work, sort of act out on impulse and sort of do his own thing. So he might actually believe the brother, or this might even help maybe change the brother's mind a little bit. Despite him betraying Toranaga and siding with Ishido, this is still his nephew. So I'd be very curious to know how that will affect their relationship. Maybe it will have no effect whatsoever. Maybe they won't even see each other. I don't really know how it's going to play out. But I do think that this death, or what appears to be a death, I can't see him recovering from this. I do feel like this will cause a lot more conflict once again between Toranaga and his brother. But I absolutely have no doubts in my mind that Toranaga has a plan, and he is absolutely going to execute that plan. There's no reason for me not to think that. And I really honestly just can't wait to see the final 3 episodes. There's a lot of intensity. There's a lot of intensity. A lot of starting to get a lot of suspense now, and I really just can't wait to see how they handle this war. Is it going to be a lot of action? Is it going to be minimal? I really can't wait to see either Toranaga succeed or fail, because at the end of the day, if this is only a one-off series, if this is only like a mini-series, it is possible that Toranaga will actually die. Let's be honest. He is only one leader with not very many clans and not a very big army, and so I would not be surprised if Toranaga does die. I just hope that I hope they all don't die. I don't want Mariko to die. I don't want Blackthorne to die. In terms of Blackthorne, I would be okay or happy with him being able to return home. I'm honestly very surprised that Toranaga still won't let him go, which makes me think that maybe he is still a part of the plan. Maybe he's already in on the plan. We just don't know it yet. I'm very curious to see how all those stories will play out. I can't wait to see, including Fuji. You know, I can't wait to see what happens to Fuji, Mirako, Blackthorne, of course, Toranaga. I think it's pretty easy to say that Toranaga very likely will die, but I feel like he has a very high chance of dying. But I do think that he'll also take out the other leaders too. So I wouldn't be surprised if like Blackthorne survives. I wouldn't be surprised if Americo survives. I do think some of Toranaga's warriors will survive, but probably not all of them. But I could be completely wrong. Maybe Toranaga will survive the whole time. It would be crazy if we learned that in the last episode that Toranaga was actually the villain the whole time. That would be a pretty cool twist. And if we learned like Ishido actually is a good guy, like, that'd be pretty crazy. I don't think it would go that way, but it would be very interesting to see that sort of left field. That little turn in left field and whatnot, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. But this was a great episode, I thought. Once again, lots of conflict, lots of intense moments, and lots of backstabbing and betrayal, and I think Shogun has been doing a phenomenal job. I'm still liking it every episode. I'm still very intrigued to see the next episode. Can't wait to see the finale. I've been loving this series the whole time, and I can't wait to see now the third and final act heading towards the finale. So with that being said, folks, that's my review of episode 7 of Shogun. Let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you liked it, tell me why or why not. If you like this episode, click that subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.